Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic kicks off the late pick 4 on Super Saturday at beautiful Belmont Park. You can play the Joe Hirsch, you can play the pick 4, play the whole card, heck, with a new DRF Bets account. Sign up, get a 300% deposit match at bets.drf.com. Here's the field for the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. We're taking a full circuit around the Belmont turf course. We're going 1.5 miles for $500,000. Mike, the horse to beat is the morning line favorite down towards the rail, the number 1 Robert Bruce, 8 for 9 in his career, scored in the Arlington Million last time out, and he really fired late.
Yeah, I agree. I think he is the horse to beat in here, but I got to say, his margin for error is not that great. This is a really good field, and clearly he fits very well in here. This is a horse who's 8 for 9 lifetime, and could easily be undefeated. He had a little trouble in that Manhattan 2 starts back, which obviously cost him in the stretch. He's a really nice horse, Dan, and I do think he's the horse to beat, but boy, this is a good field of horses.
What I like about this horse is not only is he talented and has a lot of W's under his name, but he seems fairly tactical in his stateside debut, the Grade 3 Fort Marcy. Yeah. Not a fast pace, but he was able to adapt and stay relatively close, and I think the pace in this race is still a bit up in the air. Timeform US is going to make a guess at it, and they're going to have the number 4 Carrick out there on the early lead, and he's never been on the lead in his life, and Tom Morley in the race advance for DRF.com says he wants a target. I would think that High Happy, the 2, the 8 Channel Maker, and maybe the European, the 5 Teodoro take up the running.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I would actually, if it was up to me and I had the number 2 High Happy, I'd try and make the front with that horse and see what happens in this race. Either way, I think you're right. Your point about Robert Bruce and all of this is that he is pretty adaptable, can get any kind of a trip, really, it feels like, and so it shouldn't really compromise him, especially breaking from the rail. We'll see what he does as a backup to his Arlington Million, because I was impressed with that win, but I will have to say, that wasn't a vintage Arlington Million. That was not a very strong field. The horse that he ran down, his stablemate Illman, not really 1.25 miles kind of horse, more of a miler kind of horse. I think this is going to be a little bit tougher for this horse.
Let's talk a little bit about High Happy. I was such a fan of his when he was in Southern California, never winning races for Felipe Souza. Todd Pletcher took him over, and he had a big first quarter of this year, just reeling off 4 triple-digit buyers, 2 graded stakes wins, and a score in the Grade 1 Man o' War over the inner turf at Belmont. Now, his last 2 races have been subpar. Can you simply make the excuse the Bowling Green was a soft turf course, he didn't like it? It didn't appear like he liked that course at all.
I agree.
And last time out in the Sword Dancer, they were just too conservative with him in a race that held up 1-2 around the track?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, listen, he didn't run great last time. That's for sure. But, you know, it was just one of those races where it's hard to go back and watch the Sword Dancer and just think, well, Glorious Empire just dominated that race on the lead. Channel Maker chased him around the track. Nobody else really did anything. And to add on top of that, High Happy was one of the few horses in that race who never got anywhere near the inside. Always out there 2 or 3 wide, chasing the pace uncovered. Not a very good trip for this horse. His last 2 races are disappointing. I think there are ways to excuse them, though. And I even think his Manhattan 3-back, I thought he ran great that day. I think he's a very dangerous horse in here.
Speaking of the Manhattan, we've got the 18-1 Manhattan winner in here, and I think it's the underrated Spring Quality. He's 6 years old, and he doesn't run very often, so I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. But ever since last year's Red Smith, where he pulled off an upset, this is a horse that's kind of been seeing dead red in every one of his races. Now, in the Manhattan, he got a big pace, and he came with a big wide run to win it. The Sword Dancer last time out, not so much pace, and he still was staying on to finish 3rd. Remember, he missed a start in the Arlington Million. He shipped out there, he was dehydrated. The Sword Dancer was plan B. Graham Motion has now had a chance to take a step back, regroup with Spring Quality, and maybe we'll see the best Spring Quality on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that stuff. He ran fine in the Sword Dancer, considering the way the race set up for him. He did get to save ground in there, but just trying to close into that race wasn't really happening. I thought he did well to get 3rd. His big win so far, the defining win, the Manhattan 2 starts back. Yeah, he had some things go his way that day. It was a closer's race, and it was a race where the last run was the best run. This horse made the last run. So did he take advantage? Maybe he took advantage a little bit, but he ran well that day. He had run well in his prior turf start. This is a good horse.
Maybe I'm not giving Channel Maker enough credit, but he's just kind of lost me. And I know he's in very good form right now. Yeah. His last 4 of his last 5 races have resulted in triple-digit buyer speed figures, and he just finished ahead of 4 of these common foes in the Sword Dancer. But I thought he had the 2nd best trip in the Sword Dancer. Glorious Empire was able to get to the lead, had the best trip. They ran 1-2 around the track, and it just didn't seem like Channel Maker was making a dent late against Glorious Empire. Is it coincidence that those 2 big races came at the spot? Does he happen to like it there?
Maybe he does. That's not exactly how I look at him, but I see your point there. This is what I think. And listen, I think this is a horse who's always been really good. I mean, he's He's always been a little unlucky. He had that running style that really worked against him, always trying to close. He would find traffic all the time.
And now he has speed.
And all of a sudden, his last race, I don't think it's a coincidence that his last 2 races are good, because they changed up tactics with him and they put him into the race a lot sooner, and it's really paid off for him. The dead heat 2 starts back was a really good performance. I know it was soft turf, but Glorious Empire was loose. He likes a little give in the ground. He's the horse who really likes Saratoga, and he came and got that horse in the stretch to get a dead heat out of it. He ran fine last time. You're right, second best trip in the race, but he still ran. He was very game chasing that horse all through the stretch. I think he's run really well in his last 2 starts, and that newfound tactical speed plays really, really well for him. It's going to work in this race too.
Highland Sky does not have that sort of tactical speed. He tried to rally from out of it in the Sword Dancer, perhaps compromised by the pace, perhaps just simply not good enough at this point in his career to compete against graded stakes foes. Maybe he didn't like the soft turf from the Bowling Green, where, again, trailed down the backstretch, tried to get into it on the outside, and really didn't do too much. 3 back at Belmont, he earned a big number. He got a really nice trip that day. I mean, the runner-up call provision was probably best.
Probably. He did run a nice race there, though. In distance, it does feel like, I guess, the distance is fine for him. I was concerned about distance for this horse as time went on, but it seems like he handles it fine. You know, last time, again, he was one of the horses the race didn't set up that well for, but it's still a question as to whether he's as good as several horses in this field, because this is a good field.
Teodoro is one of those few European horses with early speed. He kind of dominated that Group 3 race, going 10.5 furlongs, 2 starts back at Haydock. Last time out at York, didn't have a great trip, but really just didn't fire either. Yeah. The runner-up came back to run 3rd in the Group 1 Irish St. Ledger at the Curragh last week. This horse, again, a little bit of speed. You're getting Lasix, you're getting Ryan Moore, you're getting a price, but there are a lot of class concerns that I have.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's it's not like he's shipping into some softer spot against these turf horses, because there are some good ones in this division this year. He was more of a handicapper over there. He got the Grade 3 win last time, but that was just a race that they stole on the front end. And maybe he'll use his speed in this race, and maybe it'll work out. But it feels like that's the only chance he has.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. You're hoping that blue bar on the Timeform US Pace Projector, indicating that the race will favor horses on or near the lead, does not apply, that there is a little bit more gas than expected, and that Sadler's Joy, a true 1-run closer, will get a fair shot, because I think you can make the argument the best horse in this race on their best day might very well be Sadler's Joy.
It might be. It's close. There are a lot of good horses in here, but it's close. He's very good. And you're right that he's going to need at least some pace. He is not one of those 1-run closers who needs a huge setup or else he doesn't show up at all. He just needs it to be at least a fairly run race. When he shows up with his best, he's good. I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt for the last one, because that was clearly not a race where you want it to be last. I mean, nobody was making up ground in there. I won't hold it against him. I thought he ran great 2 starts back. I thought he ran great in the Manhattan in a race that's a little too short for him, and he went with the first move in that race. I thought he ran great in the Man of War when he just couldn't get the high happy. I think he's come back this year every bit as good as he was last year, and he was good last year. This is a tougher division this year. That's the real problem he's having. The division is a lot tougher. He's still as good as any of these horses if he gets a trip.
It's all about pace and trip. And
I think he'll be a price in this race.
Joy, he's 5-1 on the morning line, and I think he will be a little bit of a price.
He was favored last time.
Robert Bruce is going to take a lot of money, I would think, in this race, based on his Arlington Million win, his overall body of work, Chad Brown, etc. Carrick is kind of a stab for me. I like these lightly raced horses. I know he's a 3-year-old taking on elders. His Secretariat was faster than the Arlington Million from a time standpoint. Beyer gave him a 97. Craig Milkowski, Timeform US, not as kind to Carrick in that race. Maybe it was the good turf. He's 3 for 3 on off turf. I think there'll be some give in the ground on Belmont on Saturday. We've had some wet weather all weekend. I think this horse can be close to the pace. I don't think he's going to be on it. Now, again, it's easy to look at his debut and say he was in for 40. He's not that good. Tom Worley surprised, or maybe Tom Worley was stealing, figuring who's going to claim off him at 15-1 in his career debut. I'm just not really that sold on horses like High Happy, horses like Channel Maker, horses like Highland Sky. I know Sadler's Joy needs a trip. So for me, it's Carrick, and I'll be using a lot of Robert Bruce.
It'll be interesting to see what he does. I mean, you're right, they debuted him cheap, but he won that race pretty impressively. He was good that day. He's run well, actually, in all of his turf starts. I hear what you're saying about the trip. Maybe he gets the trip that he got last time. He got a great trip last time. Yeah. That was an unbelievable ride that Johnny V gave this horse. I know he was a big price in there. I think the difference is he's got to go longer in this race, which maybe that's not a problem. But the reason that was a great trip last time is because Johnny knew who the horse to beat was, and he latched right on to Analyze It around the second turn and followed him and gunned him down. And Analyze It's kind of shown he's a horse you can gun down going longer. it's going to be a lot tougher to gun down these horses.
I agree, and even let's say he does get the jump on the European horse, or if Channel Maker or High Happy don't show up, now he has Robert Bruce, now he has Sadler's Joy, now he has Spring Quality older horses running down, trying to run him down. He's 8-1 on the line. I think between 8 and 10 is fair, though, for Carrick, considering his overall body of work, and I think he has another step forward. Mike's going 3-1-8-2. I'll take a chance with Carrick 4-1-8 in the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. Bet it with a DRF Bets account. Sign up, get a 300% deposit match. Deposit 50, bet 200. Bets.drf.com. Approximate post time for the first leg of the late pick 4 at Belmont on Super Saturday, 4:42 Eastern. Good luck.